So we're here with John Nadile with, well, I guess we're not going to use that
No,
name.
we're not using the name anymore. That's why I got the shirt buttoned all the way up.
Okay. So John, who are you with?
Free agent. I'm a free agent.
He's a free agent. He's recently hit the market as a free agent. He had his own company. Well, actually,
Nadile Enterprises is the company to which I still own.
Okay.
And operate.
Yeah. And so
it's basically just a shell corporation to run my drugs, but you know.
Well, John.
Yeah, well, that's my other name. Yeah, Joe.
All right. So John, the name of this podcast episode, is Waterworks.
Oh, very nice.
Because whenever I think of you, I think of Waterworks.
Okay.
So maybe you can just.
I think that's probably the best thing you could think of when you think of me, right? Waterworks.
Yeah. So maybe you can share with our viewers a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And how did you get into it?
Well, I am five generations of plumbers, all the way back. We thought we were 4 generations, but then an excavator was excavating from the street to a house. He had to change the sewer line. Mm-hmm. And he went back to the town of Meriden, City Hall, to find permits for the job that had been done. They actually had a permit from 1915 that had my great-great-grandfather's name on it. Really? He pulled the permit for a sewer line on East Main Street in 1915.
In Meriden.
Clay. It was a clay sewer line, yeah. It's pretty amazing.
That's wild.
And it had lasted all the way up until about 10 years ago.
Huh.
So almost 100 years in the ground. Clay. Pretty amazing. So he was also a mason.
Okay.
My great-great-grandfather. And the old sidewalks in Meriden, mm-hmm. they were all slate and concrete, and they had brass nameplates, and it said Frederick Nadile, and it gave his address, and he had his plates all over Meriden. So when they ripped all that up, they all got lost. My father still has one, so that's pretty cool. So he was the first generation in the United States from Italy. His son, James, my great-grandfather, took on the plumbing trade. He liked to bet on horses and just have a good time. So he ran the company, but didn't actually work. He just was a good businessman. And he went to the horses every day and bet on horses. So his 3 sons, my 2 great uncles and my grandfather, ran the business for him, along with my great uncle Joe and all the Nadiles. We had a lot of family members that worked for them throughout the 40s and 50s, through the Great Depression in the 30s. And then my grandfather took it over and ran it until he got too sick to run it. And then, all the stems that went off from there. My father had his own business for many years. I worked for him out of high school. I went to Wilcox in Meriden and went to tech school, and pretty much out of high school worked for my father for about 5 years, and then we kind of separated and parted ways when I was about 23, and I started my own business and had my own business till I was about 33. And then I worked for this company. I sold my business to this company, and I worked for them for 3.5 years. So now here I am.
Yeah, just hitting the market as a free agent.
Yep. So my whole life has been plumbing.
Your multiple lifetimes.
Multiple lifetimes.
And that is going to be imprinted into your epigenetic DNA at this point.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you didn't really have a choice. It's a good living. My father said to me in high school, he said, listen, you take plumbing, any trade, you provide for your family, you'll never go hungry. You never have to worry about work. You might not be a millionaire, but you provide for yourself. So
we're getting to a day and age where you might have a quicker route to millionaire than you realize.
Yeah, I know, right?
So
that's very true.
Yeah, I mean it's a field that is so in demand, and there's just not enough people who are good to do it.
No, they're in construction alone. There's a shortage of, I believe, 700,000 people,
right,
nationwide. So plumbing, I'm sure, is right there with it. It's a dying trade.
Yeah,
literally.
People don't want to get dirty. People don't want to work hard.
Well, and they don't appreciate what plumbing really is. There's so many different avenues of plumbing you can get into that will sometimes not even, your hands won't even touch tools,
Right.
So there's just so many avenues you could choose, but it's just got a stigma. When it comes to education, it's very simple, especially in a technical high school scenario. You graduate. I had all my hours towards my apprenticeship as far as the schooling goes. I didn't have to go to school anymore after I graduated high school. Mm-hmm. All I had to do was go to work and then get signed up for the apprenticeship program. And then within 3.5 years, I was able to take my test for my journeyman P2 license. And then 2 years after that, I qualified for my master license, and I got that. Nice. Yeah.
So the reason why I wanted to have you on, as opposed to all the other plumbers I know, is because
I didn't realize that. I had a lot of a competition here.
I've got a decent amount of plumbers in my Rolodex.
Wow. Do they look as good as I do?
No.
Okay. I'm better looking.
You're definitely more of a prima donna as well.
I'll take that. Yeah.
Yeah,
don't call me unless it's something like cool or easy.
Cool
is fine.
Right.
Like digging up mud pits. That's fun.
Right.
But don't bother me with a toilet thing, It's just I don't want to bother with it, Yeah. Although now I might have to be more bothered with
it. Right. But so what jumped out to me with you is I think that multi-generation of plumbers has rubbed off because my first experience with you, and I don't know if you remember this, Steve gave me your number, and he said, because I was looking we were looking to do that manifold in Squire on building 3.
Yes, I do remember that. Yep.
And I called a bunch of plumbers. It was my first month in property management or second month in property management. There was this thing that needed to get done. Buildings that were built in the 70s, 71,
60, late 60s, I
late
think
60s,
it was. Yeah.
And they needed all their plumbing in their mechanical room redone with new ball valves and that main line. And the way they ran it from building to building back in 69, 70 was with that well pipe.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And they had it on one continuous line or then it split off and it would go into 2 different buildings.
Yeah.
You weren't really sure which order the buildings were in.
I still am not sure.
Right. So I called a bunch of plumbers and a bunch of them came out and looked at it and they're like, yeah, this is a mess. I'm not even going to touch this. This is too complicated. It's poorly built. It's just a liability. It's a hazard waiting to happen. And I'm afraid to touch this and screw it up. And I remember, obviously that was stressful for me because I know I just need to get the work done.
Yeah. And
all the licensed plumbers I'm calling, everybody's, scared of it.
Yeah.
So I called you and you came in, you looked at it, you're like, oh yeah, it's easy. $1,300.
By the way, I should have been much higher than that.
Probably. It might have been 1,700, but
it was something like that.
It was yeah, this is no problem. I think it's
easy.
I knew enough to not tell you that everybody had said they were scared of it until after you did the work.
Yeah.
I said, oh, we've gotten a bunch of other bids, blah, blah, blah. And you came in and it took you half a day. And there was that one guy who was mad that he didn't get water. didn't get the text about the
Yeah,
water.
they're always upset.
But regardless, you got it done. It was a half day job, and it's been perfect ever since. And after that situation, it got registered in my head. If I have a complicated plumbing issue, I call John.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I take pride in that.
Yeah,
My father is to blame for that.
really.
Well, he gets the credit. Well, he trained me.
Yeah.
So he always said to me, you can't let plumbing control you. You have to be in control. So when you look at something, it can be very intimidating. But if you think of it in a simplistic way, it's not that complicated. It's water. It's flowing, right? There's valves. If the valve breaks, you got to change the valve. That's it. It's not that hard.
Right. Well,
You diagnose it. And so, yeah, so I always tried to train my apprentices or whoever in that same way. Simplify it. Don't let it control you. You control it. That's it. And then when it's 3:30, you pack up and go home. No. Can't do that, unfortunately.
not anymore.
No.
So
Well, even then, I mean, if you got an issue,
Yeah.
you got to just get it done.
right. And so now since that job, we've done a number of really cool jobs together.
We have.
that we're going to get into today. And it's funny because you're like, sometimes I feel like you're the third leg in our marriage, like you're the third wheel, because every anniversary.
That's right.
My wedding
like
anniversary.
2 years in a row, right?
My wedding anniversary is on January 12th. So,
You picked a terrible time to get married.
well, I guess so.
Yeah.
But basically every year for the first 2 or 3 years of my marriage, I would spend it with my wife and John because there was a burst pipe
Well,
at one
actually,
of the
we
properties.
spent more time together. Your wife was in the car,
Yeah.
patiently waiting
Right. Well, there's
in the heat.
While
So they
there's-
had some heat going.
water
Yeah,
works.
pouring from the ceilings. Yeah, it's funny.
So let's get into it, man. Let's
Yeah, all right.
So after we did that first job, which everybody else was scared of, and you
Yep.
just came in and did it smoothly.
Yep.
I think the next piece. What was
There
what,
were
what has been-
several more in that complex before we even got out of that complex, right? Because that was your first real.
Yes. But yes, that's true. But there wasn't like dramatic issues, I don't
Just
think.
that underground, but that was later.
That was later. That was
the
later. We
underground
came back to that.
And then the interior, we had to change all that main.
Right.
That was after as well. We had to relocate, remember, out of because they brought all the water mains up where all the electrical panels were.
Yes, that
We
was
had to relocate that to a safer area.
right.
Remember?
That was also
Yeah.
with that was later on. But we can get into that because that's
Yeah.
what was the most memorable one for you? What is the most memorable?
Hartford.
Oh yeah. Which one? Which Hartford one?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot. There was actually a few there. Probably figuring out that there was an old foundation and figuring out where that leak was. Okay. That was cool.
So I think that was our third big job together.
What was before that?
Was the one the closet burst pipe like 3 weekends in a row.
Oh,
The
that's
anniversary.
right. It was like 3 weekends in a row.
Yeah. So
I remember that because the unit owner wouldn't leave the heat on.
he had shut all the utilities off.
Yes, that's right.
So give me I remember it from my point of view, right? But we've never sat down and talked about what happened with these situations from your perspective. So I think our second time working together was that closet.
Well, anytime it's after 5 o'clock and you call, that's normally not a good reason. It's not
good
something
sign,
that's
yeah.
going to be,
Yeah.
I'm going to like. It's not going to be asking me how my day was,
That is true.
So yeah, I believe it was after 5.
Yeah, my wife and I were out for dinner.
That's right.
It was like 7:30.
That's right. And you were going to go down to, you were heading down to New Haven, weren't you? Or is that the
Yes.
second time?
I think it was the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were going down New Haven. It might have been like 3 or 4:30.
And it was your anniversary.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I met your wife.
Yep.
Yeah. And you call me in a panic. And then there's not much you can do. When there's a problem, you just got to get in the truck and go. I was pulling into my driveway. I remember that. I was pulling into my driveway and I got your phone call. And I literally just backed out. And just drove
Your wife sees you come home, just back right out.
Hope you got everything you need. Usually I keep the van well stocked. Showed up, and it was in a tough spot. I just remember it cascading down from like it was like not the closet area, but like the overhang. It was just pouring water down into the unit below, right? Which he owned. He owned it was like a 2-tiered.
Yep. It was, it's a townhouse style, one above the other.
But then we had to get into the other units.
Right. To access the pipe.
To get in there and access the pipe. It's freezing cold. Water spraying everywhere. It's just
like
not
a
how
geyser.
you want to spend your Tuesday evening.
No.
I think that's the best way to put it.
Right.
Yeah. It's a geyser. It's just full force water from the city coming down at you.
3/4 pipe.
3/4 pipe. Yep. I believe we had 2 breaks the first time, 2 or 3.
Yep.
We did our best. It went behind the water heater, I think.
Yep.
And we had to kind of just like fish it through, boom, 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 turn it on. Everything's beautiful. And then literally a week later, same night, I think, you called me and it was the same exact thing. So with a burst pipe, to those of you who might not know, it's usually not going to happen right when the pipe freezes. It happens after it dethaws. So we had really cold weekends, and then it would warm up Monday, Tuesday, and then by the end of Tuesday, everything had thawed out, and now the pipe explodes and water goes everywhere. So, yeah.
Yeah. And
we fixed that again, and did it happen a third time?
Yep.
And then I think didn't I refuse to come, but I came anyway?
Yep.
Yeah. I said, I'm not coming.
Not doing this again. And there was no shut off to that.
And the guy was like, didn't you call the police or something?
Yeah. Called the police, the fire, because the dude was like,
he was like purposely, neglectfully doing this.
Yeah. He showed up with his plumber the first time.
Yeah.
Looked at it. Because the closet wasn't in his unit, it's all his mechanicals. It's his closet.
Right.
But it wasn't like in the 4 corners of his unit. It was, you had to like go outside of the unit and go up a set of stairs to get to it. So he's like, that's outside of my unit. It's not my problem. And just left. And I don't know if you remember this, but when it burst, there was so much pressure and so much water that it shot a hole through a couple layers of sheetrock into this other guy's unit. Like it was like
it was all wet on that little landing area because he had stairs that went up.
Yeah. And we were looking at it and there was holes where the water had just drilled holes in the sheetrock, just shooting in to his unit. 2 layers. Man. 2 layers through. And so it happened 2 or 3 times. He didn't have any heat to the unit. He didn't have his utilities on.
Yep.
And we just ended up paying you and billing it back. I mean, we put a lien on his property and eventually...
You got it paid.
Yeah, we got it paid. But it was there was so much water damage.
He was remodeling that unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was an investor who had spent...
way too much money.
Well, not just that. You never heard about the story?
No.
He was an investor. The way he made his money was he went to jail for murder.
Okay.
He did like 20 years or 21 years or something like that. And then when he was released, or they eventually found him not guilty.
Oh, and he got paid.
The state awarded him $1 million for every year he was in prison.
Come on.
Yep.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And so he just took the money. I mean, smart enough to take the money, invested in real estate.
Yeah.
But he just didn't care. He was just like,
wow.
Yeah. So
anyway,
that was a tough one.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is you you were the first one to point out, like, hey, these mechanicals are on exterior walls. And if they're not, like, there's no insulation here. So if these aren't running, there's going to be no radiant heat to keep them warm. And therefore the pipes are going to freeze. Whereas if they're running, it's going to be warm enough in this closet where your pipes won't freeze.
Flowing water doesn't freeze.
Right.
And so it's always actually a little trick. If you feel like you have pipes on the outside wall, or you're worried about an extreme cold night, you just leave your faucet dripping. And you leave the cabinets open to the whatever it might be, kitchen or lav sink, and the airflow will protect rather than restricting that cold exposure. You leave the doors open and you leave the faucet just dripping at night.
And it won't freeze.
I'm not going to guarantee it, but you certainly have a much better shot.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little plumber's trick.
A little plumber's trick.
I tell because I'd rather not come out at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I'd rather you just do that, and then I don't have to. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't like to come out and charge you. I want to stay home and be warm.
That's understandable.
Yeah,
I get that.
So
there was that. So that was the second big thing.
Remind me to tell you a story about my coolest experience as a plumber, and it doesn't involve you. I'm sorry, but let's continue.
No, let's hear it.
Well, you don't want to stay on your...
No.
Okay.
We'll circle back around.
We got a phone call from a real estate developer out of Florida who invested a lot of money in real estate in Connecticut. He bought Mike Tyson's old house, or 50 Cent's old house. Remember 50 Cent bought it, remodeled it. They bought that, and then they also bought an 18-story building in Hartford. It used to be state-owned, where they ran Connecticut Department of Defense, all different municipal things. And they called us and said, hey, we're looking to get some maintenance done on the property in Avon for what used to be Mike Tyson's house. So we sent a bunch of, because the other portion of our business is irrigation, so lawn irrigation. So they sent some of our guys out there to take a look at the facilities and see what they could do. And it was just an absolute disaster.
Really?
Everything hadn't been basically maintained since Mike Tyson built it in the 90s. So it was just a mess, an absolute mess. And one of the guys who was there, the manager of the facility, was talking about how he's the last one left over from the days of 50 Cent, when 50 Cent was there, and 50 Cent would use that house as a party house. And when he would throw a party, it would be upwards of $100,000 in repair damage that would need to be done with the parties he would throw.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if he was telling a lie or not, but it was very convincing.
Okay.
But anyway, so they call us up and they're like, listen, appreciate you doing all that work over there. What we need you to do is we need you to send your plumbing manager over to the 18-story building in Hartford and figure out what our options are for the winter, because we don't want to run the heat on an 18-story building. We don't want to spend the money.
It's a vacant
building, yes. Okay. So I show up. The guy who comes to let me in the building has a keychain filled with like 200 keys, and he can't figure out which key it is. So I'm there for about 45 minutes. We can't get into the building. Had to set up another meeting. A couple days later, he's got the right key. We get in. It had been abandoned for a good 8 to 10 years, I'd say. You could tell probably someone lived in there or is living in there. Ceiling tiles falling, in disarray. Probably remodeled in year 2000.
Okay.
But nothing had been done since, and it was just starting to fall apart, especially when no one's there, right?
Right.
So it was probably very beautiful at some point. So I call up my boss and I'm like, hey, I mean, this building is like, it's a mess.
Yeah.
You've got broken drain pipes. Most of the flush valves for the toilets aren't working. So I'm like, I don't know what to recommend here, but you got to keep the heat on, because if you don't, everything's going to freeze. And you're going to have 18 stories of problems. So he goes, okay, let me talk to them. Talks to them, and this big shot girl down in Florida. We want to winterize the property. And I'm like, what do you mean winterize? So now I'm talking to her. We want to winterize it. I'm like, there's no way to winterize an 18-story building. You don't back up a generator and a air compressor and hook it up to an outside faucet and blow the system out. You're talking millions of gallons of water in that entire building with pipes the size of 4, 6, 8, 10-inch mains. It's not designed to be winterized. It's just impossible. It's impossible. Never mind the fact that all the mechanisms aren't working. So if you try and flush the toilet and empty that line that's coming down, it's not going to empty because the mechanism doesn't work. So you're just trying to flush a toilet that's not going to flush. So she goes, we don't care. We want it winterized. How much? How much to winterize it? And I said, well, first of all, we got to call up. I forget the municipality. Who takes care of the water? And
MDC.
MDC. They got to come out and shut it off at the street to this mega building and hope that it holds and shuts down this building. There's water pouring in everywhere. There's electrical panels half underwater. I mean, this building was in close to disrepair.
Wait. Why was there water over the electrical panel?
Because there was a leak. And no one seemed to care. So like that whole area, I'm like, no one go near there. Never mind the fact that underneath was the parking garage, which was very dark and very black. So you couldn't, and then you'd come upon like a tent, and you didn't know if there was somebody who had lived in the tent or if there's someone living in the tent. But it was very intimidating, I'd say the word is. So we walked around with pipe wrenches, 2-foot pipe wrenches for the majority of the time. We had to bring our guys from the irrigation side in, who are some roughnecks, wielding 2-foot pipe wrenches to protect ourselves. Thankfully, we never did run into anybody, but it was definitely scary. Especially when you came upon like shattered glass and like blood on the floor from the guy shattering the glass, and you're like, oh.
What in the world?
Yeah, is there somebody in here still? So before we get to that point, she goes, how much? So I'm like, well, you're going to have to get probably 1,000 gallons of antifreeze to put into the fixtures. So we got a price for that, and then I did a estimate of $10,000 estimate to winterize that property. I'm sorry, are you busy?
There's a little bit of a situation.
Oh,
There always is.
there always is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I've triaged it.
Okay.
And I've sent the appropriate people the appropriate phone numbers to call. Just wait. I see the dots.
Yeah, typing.
Okay.
It's a good time for a break anyway.
All right.
So I gave them an estimate of $10,000.
That doesn't seem like enough.
Well, I figured it would take us, me and maybe 3 guys, it would probably take us. The service elevator had just been serviced and it was in working order. It was about $1,000 of material, and it was, I figured $9,000 for labor. I figured 3 guys, 2-3 days, we'd be out of there.
So was there a valve that you could flush it from like the basement or the bottom?
You literally just had to open up valves and drain them into floor drains. Anywhere you could find in the basement. Hook a couple, we had like 3 or 4 hoses. We had pumps sucking water. And we started at the 18th floor, which was the penthouse. And we opened up everything and let it all drain by gravity. That was the theory. It's the only way we could do it. First, we had them sign a contract saying we were completely exempt from any liability because it wasn't going to work.
Right.
And then we were going to I forget how many 1-gallon jugs of the RV antifreeze, put it on our little cart, went up to the 18th floor, and we started just dumping antifreeze in all the fixtures. The drains were backing up, so you're trying to drain the water into the drains, and they're overflowing because none of the drains are working correctly. You had cracked drain lines that were pouring into the downstairs below. You had everything was broken in that place. So basically, we got paid to do nothing. We got paid $10,000 to do nothing because it wasn't going to work. Everything was screwed up anyway. It was just a fun story. We were able to. There was 10 of us that showed up, all the irrigation guys. We got walkie-talkies. We started by the time we got down to about the 7th floor from the 18th, we were getting full pressure. And we were like, what's going on here? By now, it should be drained completely. We had to call back MDC, wait for them to show up, and they had to try and open and reclose the valve because the valve wasn't holding. And then they had to find another valve, open and reclose it, and try and make it so that it was completely shut off to the building. So that took probably longer than our actual work because we had to call them back, and it was like an emergency. And but by 3 o'clock, we were done. One day.
Jeez.
It was cool. It was fun.
And then what happened after that?
Never heard from him again.
Do you know if it held?
I mean, I drove by as like I was on the highway and you could see the building from the highway. And I was like, I want to see, because a telltale sign if there's a problem is you're going to have fog on the windows from the inside.
Okay.
And I drove past and it was a cold day. And I looked up and there was like fog on like 8 of the windows all the way going all the way down. So I'm like, either there's one problem or there's many problems. But yeah.
And
so
you told him it wasn't going to work.
Wasn't going to work. So, but that was the coolest thing I ever done in plumbing.
Huh. Just get paid to do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it was like an abandoned building, 18 stories. I come from a simpler background of, service calls and mom and pop houses, not 18-story, mega buildings. So,
which is weird because you're, I think, one of the more talented and just smart plumbers that I've come across. So it's interesting that you don't have a background in that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, light commercial, nothing too heavy. Yeah. But like I said, everything's the same. It's just bigger. There's not really anything different in plumbing. It's just bigger versions of the small stuff. So, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's all. It's more complicated.
So let's move over a couple streets then.
Okay.
So then there's the big one. The big one. This is our first, well, it's not our first big one, but it's the biggest thing that we've ever done.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, this is personally one of my proudest accomplishments.
Yeah.
And you were a part of it.
Well,
and I couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, it was a fun little thing. And the fact that we found and we were able to diagnose the issue as quickly as we did, I think is very impressive.
Yeah. So just some backstory on this. We had an association in Hartford. We'll call it the Muse.
Are you still with them?
Yeah.
Nice.
They after that, they wanted to sign like a lifetime contract with me.
Yeah.
They were like, we want you forever. And so when they hired us, they were our second association, and they had just been, property managers stolen from them. There was embezzlement. They had been,
it's crazy,
gone through the ringer. They MDC, the water utility, had made promises to them. They paid them like $70,000 or $50,000.
Yes, I remember that was $70,000.
Yeah, to like help them find where this
Yes.
underground leak was, and then they went and checked all the toilets and said, "Oh, your toilets are fine." And like
It's obvious that it's not the toilets, guys.
just
You know what I
wild.
mean?
We're looking at the water bills, and every month it's like the usage is like 1.4 million gallons,
Yeah,
and
that's a lot of gallons.
for 66 units.
Yeah,
And we're talking to you about it, and you're like, that's not a toilet running. That's
yeah,
20 toilets or more.
yeah, constantly.
Right.
Yeah,
And
you would be surprised how fast a water bill will go up when a toilet's running, but you'd have to have crazy problems with toilets, many units in a row.
Right.
So,
and I remember getting into the water pit, and you're like, I didn't know any better. I just thought that that's what the meter did. And you're like, that it just was like spitting.
yeah, it was just usually it's not supposed to.
Yeah, you're
Supposed to do this.
Yeah, it's like very. I just thought that was like what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And then so we're trying to like isolate and find the issue and shut off certain buildings, but
Yep.
like the valves in front of each of the units is so old that it's like
Yeah.
you can't turn it, you can't use it. God forbid it's 4 feet down. God forbid you break it.
Yeah. And you own it because it's all on that property.
It's all private. And then we call MDC, and MDC is like, no, it's past the meter. It's not
Yep.
our problem. So, so I remember before I brought you in, well, I think I talked to you about it. I showed you around, and you're like, it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
And there was no signs of water damage or leaking or settling or sinkhole or anything like that. I mean, the whole property was in disarray, but mainly because their water bill for the last 10 years was like over $10,000 a month. I mean, and it was creeping up more and more. I mean, at this point, by the time I came on, when I started, it was like $13,000 a month. And within 6 months, it climbed to $15,000 a month.
Wow.
Dollars a month in water usage. And they're like spending their entire budget on water. And they have no money for anything else. Their siding's falling down. There's potholes all through the parking lot. The trim is all rotted. Like there's no money to do anything else other than pay their water bill, and they're still falling behind. And MDC is about to put a lien on them because they owe MDC, the utility, like over $100,000. I think it was like $120,000 at this point. And we're looking at the bills and we're adding it all up, and they're like, over the last 12 years that this has been going on, they've probably paid the utility like over $1 million in water, well over $1 million in water. And they hired 2 different leak detection companies, 3 different property managers, and nobody could figure it out.
It just seems hard to believe.
I know.
There's an answer to everything.
Right. But just nobody cared enough
Yeah.
to do it.
Wow.
And I think it was fortuitous that, they were my second association. I had a little bit of time on my hands.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's true.
And I had a new tractor. So I had been reading like self-help
And a
books.
great plumber.
And a great plumber.
A great plumber.
So I'd been reading self-help books, and I had just learned.
Be positive.
Be positive. Never say we can't afford something. Just say, how can we afford it? Right? So I really wanted a tractor. I'd been wanting a tractor for years. I don't know why, but I really wanted a tractor.
Oh, that's funny.
And so we were like, I was like, how can I afford a tractor? I said, well, if I start a property management company and then expand to landscaping and snow removal,
Then you can have a tractor.
I guess I can
That's
justify a
why
tractor.
That's why you went down this road, so you could get a tractor.
Yeah,
That's
basically.
kind of the best story of this whole night, I think. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I got my tractor. It was a sweet tractor.
I know it. Yeah.
And
You'll no longer have it now, though.
I did sell it when I sold the landscape.
So you got a chance to play with it, have fun, and now it's somebody else's problem.
Right. I got some bigger toys too in this whole deal. It was a good time. If I could, if I could, and it wasn't as stressful as it is, I would love to just, and I got paid well. I would love to just do landscaping and snow removal, but there would have to be like
to it. It's a lot of stress.
Yeah, it's the business side of it that's very stressful. But like the job, like doing
you just want to get out there and go to. It's just like any other, It's like me with plumbing. It's like I just want to go to work. I don't want to worry about emergencies all the time, and it's the liability and it's people paying you.
Right, people being ungrateful.
Yeah.
So I got this. I said, hey, listen, and you guys are going to go with me for the landscaping and snow. There's this leak. If you guys sign this contract for landscaping and snow, it'll justify the tractor, and then I can help you find the leak quicker, and we won't have to rent the equipment because I already have it.
That's a good way to do it.
And they were like, okay. And so I brought in Johnny, and and he's a civil engineer, a friend of mine who's a civil engineer, and we went and we looked at. He used to work for MDC, and he went to town hall, got the as-builts, brought like this, huge blueprint drawing thing, said here. And we looked at the as-builts for the water lines. And we found all the different areas. And he's like, most likely, the first thing we need to isolate north versus south side and see if shutting off one leg
is going to, affect.
Because there was two legs of the association. So there's a north leg and a south leg. So he's like, let's shut one off and see if the meter still runs. And then let's shut the other one off and let's see if the meter still runs. So we were able to isolate it to the south leg, which was good.
Yeah, first step.
Right. And then there was two areas where we could dig down, and we were gonna rent these sound listening devices to try to listen to see where the leak was, right? And so we called CBYD, call before you dig, and we set it up for these two areas. And we were supposed to start on the area closer to that T valve, that T junction. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, I think I knew that was going to be a more complicated dig. So the other one was kind of out towards this field, and it was in the field. There used to be, the developer had planned a whole nother
building. So they put footings, they were all ready to go.
Right. And from according to the drawings, it looked like they had run all they had planned all the utilities.
Yes.
So Johnny was like, I would check here, especially if they started building this and they just never finished it. Yeah. Like your issue might be around this area.
Yeah.
And it was a less complicated dig. It was a little further away from the high pressure gas lines. So that was the other complexity.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was the hardest part of the whole thing was they ran all of the utilities. So you had your electrical, high pressure gas, and water and sewer all in the same trench.
Yeah.
So
I remember that.
So we would have to dig around high pressure gas
and then
lines.
dig by hand when you get close enough. Yeah.
Right.
Figure it out.
And the high pressure gas is above, a few feet above the water line.
Yep.
Like the water line. So you have to get past the high pressure gas.
Yep.
Super explosive.
Yep.
To then try to access the water. So he says, just check this area. So I go and I get my little tractor, and I just start digging a hole next in this grass near where this, other building was supposed to be. And we dig 6 feet down, and sure enough, on the side of the hole that we dug, there's a little bit of water. Just a little bit, just a trickle.
Yeah. That was closer to the buildings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you had put plywood over it.
Yeah.
Is that true? And then I showed up to look. Uh-huh. And that's where we kind of started from there, right?
Yep.
Yes, I remember now.
So now you come into the picture.
Yep. And the more we started to speak about it, the more I looked, the trees were very vibrant, they were very green.
Right. Except for one that was real dead.
Right.
And we were like, is it because it's getting flooded?
Yes, there was a few, I think, that were dead in that area. And we're like, is that why? Is it too much water? Everything else was fine, just in this area.
Yeah.
And then that's where we decided that we were going to start digging, right? Mm-hmm. And before we started, I remember we showed up with the machine. And the girl who was on the board,
Danita,
she says to me, we're going to need an estimate. What's this going to cost? And I was like, listen, lady, you're paying $15,000 a month in water. Don't worry about what my bill is. Just be happy that I get it fixed for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny what, like, you're worried about my bill.
Yeah.
Why don't you worry about your $1 million bill to the water department? Maybe don't worry about what I'm doing.
right?
So we started digging, and pretty quickly we came upon the first leak, right?
Yeah, we dug a hole, and it just filled with water.
Yeah. It filled with water, but not as fast until we dug the next hole.
Right.
And then remember, that rushing water was so
Crazy.
It was so crazy intense underneath there. I don't know how you had a river underneath that grass for years. How it didn't all wash away, I have no idea.
Well, the concrete foundation, I think, held it all together.
Yeah, maybe.
It was like a swimming pool.
Yeah, it was like a swimming pool.
And I just remember, like, we're digging all these trenches trying to find where it was. We think we're getting closer, and then all of a sudden,
It got close.
we hit it.
Yeah.
And it literally...
I'm like, there can't be this much groundwater here. You know, you start to, like, question, like, is this groundwater? Because there are crazy situations like that where you have literal rivers underneath the ground.
Right.
So you're like, this is just too coincidental, you know?
And then we kept just digging, and like we're digging down, and we hit like just concrete. And we're like, oh, that's the foundation wall. So we dig into one side, dig to the other side, dig it back a little, and we're just trying to chase the water back.
Yeah.
And eventually, we uncover a pipe. We get close enough to it, and I just remember a geyser.
I think I still have video and pictures from that.
It was wild.
Yeah.
I've never seen, like, I mean, we're talking trenches that you could, like, huge. You could put small machines in these trenches.
Yep.
That we'd
Completely
filled
Yeah.
like that. Like, literally in
seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as, and it was like, what was it? A 2-inch?
4-inch ductile iron.
Well, that was, but they had 4-inch ductile that ran a 2-inch copper.
To 2-inch, yeah.
Copper. And they had, so they had live utilities all through this field. 2-inch copper main lines, right?
Yep.
And it wasn't like one terminus. It was like 8 or 10 terminuses that were all just left live and buried.
Yep.
So that's 10 different areas where this could go wrong.
Yep.
All feeding from a 4-inch ductile iron. And so that was crazy because it's like just filling up, and we're like calling MDC, and we had shut down the whole complex.
Yeah. It took us 2 days to do that.
Yeah.
2 full days, remember?
Right.
We were into the night of the second night before we were able to get
Out of there. Yeah, and you had all the different pumps, and the pumps weren't working.
And it was bad. We needed an industrial, like, mud snucker in there to keep up, and we weren't prepared at all.
Right.
We weren't prepared.
And then we chased it back, and we're finally like, all right, screw this.
Yeah, forget all of it.
Let's just go all the way back to the 4-inch ductile iron, because we saw the as-built. We're like, okay, all this stuff is ancillary.
Yeah.
Let's just go to the source and cut off the.
Yeah.
And so we left it overnight.
Yeah, that's right.
And we dug in a different place, got the saw cutter, dug straight down, maybe 20, 30 yards away, and tried to cap it. We're like, we're going to cap it as far back as we can. And then the issue was, as we were looking for it, we have the as-built, but the as-built are wrong. Like, according to the as-built,
there's a shock.
Right? The water main was supposed to go right off of the rear of the stairwell.
You got a good memory. I don't remember that.
Yeah, but you remember now, right?
Yeah.
And we were like 30, 40 feet away from that, and we keep digging back, and we're like, there's no pipe here. There's no pipe here. There's no pipe here. And then finally, we're like, oh, here's the pipe.
Yep.
And
that was gnarly too, because we didn't know what we were getting into. We knew that it was 2-inch copper, but we didn't know what size we were going to be getting into. So then that creates a problem, because it's almost 5 o'clock by the time we finally find it. And it looks like it's 4-inch ductile iron. So we go to FW Web in Hartford. They have a water division there. Thankfully, we were able to get a cap, and then we were able to, we solved it from there. We just put the cap on and
cut it, put the cap on, and capped it.
Yeah, and to cut the ductile iron, you got to cut it with like a concrete saw.
Yes.
And yeah, we got it done.
That was wild.
It was. That was an intense experience all overall. And when you're dealing with ductile iron, it's I have some limited experience with it. We did a factory years ago where we did 6-inch ductile iron. But you have to make sure that it's all done correctly. You have to make sure it's completely on, and then you have to, there's these bolts that screw into the sides, and then you've got there's other bolts, and then you have to actually put something behind the joint so that the pressure, that surge pressure doesn't push that cap off. So I was able to actually take the old pipe and shave it down how much the cap was taking up, and I was able to wedge it between the old pipe and that cap,
couple of
and push it
blocks,
down. And yeah, we got it done.
And then the big question was,
were we gonna work? Was it gonna work?
Was it gonna work, or were there other leaks?
Were we gonna look like a bunch of idiots?
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know. Well, when we turned the water back on, and the dial wasn't spinning 1,000 miles a minute, that was a good indication.
Right.
But then also, a month or two later, when they get the bill from MDC, it was a big difference in the bill.
Yeah, it went from $15,000 the month before to like $2,300.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Which is we were probably about 12 grand to do the job. So
13.
Yeah. So perfect.
Yeah. I mean, literally for 1 month of water savings, you solved a 15-year issue.
Yeah. I solved $1 million issue.
$1 million issue.
Should have been more.
Should have charged more.
Should have charged more.
I should have too.
What's it worth?
Right? Yeah.
What's it worth?
And
there's a lot of liability there too. I mean, there's danger when you're digging, water damage to the soil, and
heavy equipment,
compromising the soil, all that stuff. You got a lot of liability there. So,
and but that was, I mean, they got a tremendous value out of that, and I was just super proud, and I think they were thrilled, right?
Yeah.
And that was one of the moments that made me feel the best ever since I've done this job, was to be able to solve that problem with you and Johnny. And
yeah, it's extremely rewarding.
Yeah.
To solve a problem like that that nobody else can solve,
Right. and kind of what blew my mind, or when I realized, like, hey, maybe there's something to me pursuing this line of work, was, the fact that everybody else had tried to do it and had failed, and I'm just some kid with, I had done a couple flips and remodels, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I had no experience.
You got your little John Deere tractor and your,
a little backhoe.
You got your little hard hat on,
right? And I'm like, way out of my depths with this.
Yeah.
I like no clue what's going on here. Just trying to be a critical thinker and say, well, how would I solve this problem, right? And really the answer is talk to people who know more than I do. And I reached out to Johnny, I reached out to you, and you guys came in and you did what you knew best.
Yeah.
And together we were able to fix a really big problem for a client who desperately needed it.
The famous saying is the most successful people surround themselves with very smart people.
Yeah.
A lot smarter than they are.
Yep.
Not saying that I'm smarter than you are, but you know what I mean.
You are, especially when it comes to plumbing.
When it comes to plumbing, maybe, yeah.
I remember.
And you did lose your privileges too.
Yes. Yeah. So, I did like a sink drain a few months later, and he said, don't
text me a picture or gave me an idea of what he was doing, and it was the most terrifying thing I think I've ever heard.
You had to go fix it.
I just said, please stop whatever you're doing and don't ever do that again.
Please don't touch plumbing.
That's right. I had to go fix it.
Yeah.
It was in Country Squire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
And I'm
it was
like,
something
what?
simple. It was just like
It was like a horror movie. It was like out of a horror movie. If plumbing could be scary,
there was just a lot of caulk, a lot of silicone.
yeah, it was a lot going on, man.
Well, it just, here's the thing. It was a kitchen sink. We had to put a new counter in, new sink in. And here's the issue is that, those P-traps assemblies that they sell you at Home Depot in the bag, like all together. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's only like a small range of like fitment for it.
Yeah, pretty easy, right?
Hey, it's got to work. So
there you go.
I said, I just got to stretch this
How hard
to its
could
capacity.
it be? Yeah.
And you just use caulk to fill in.
Yeah, just use caulk for the rest. That's
to
good.
fill in what it's lacking.
And then the poor girl, she can't use her sink. And it's an emergency now.
That was the early days.
Yeah,
man.
that was the early days.
And I learned that plumbing is not my thing. There are other things that are my thing.
So we had another burst pipe, I believe, or just with some random break.
Where?
Underneath one of the buildings in Country Squire.
Oh, so we got 3 more good ones at Country Squire.
Do we? Oh, that's right, we do.
So which one are you thinking of?
I'm thinking of the one where I had to crawl underneath. That one. It was wet and it was just like, what am I doing here? But I think it was just one of the black plastic pipes.
Yeah, so it was one of those well pipes.
Yeah.
And I got a call late at night. I think this was like last April. And just someone saying, "Hey, there's rushing water coming from underneath my unit." It's like, what? She's like, "Yeah, there's a crawl space underneath my unit, and there's rushing water coming from there." And I was at another complex doing a pitch, or I was at the complex next door doing a pitch for them because they wanted to work with us. And I sent my guys, and they're like, "Yep, there's rushing water underneath this unit." And I was like, "This is so weird. There's no water. I don't think there's water. I mean, is it, pipes to their unit?"
Yeah.
And I get up there, and I'm like, "Yep, there's rushing water." And I get my flashlight, and I look, and it was the water main. I mean, they have 3 buildings, and they all come from the same mechanical room, and they kind of like,
yeah.
And that was the one for building 16. And all I could see was like rocks and then water like geysering out from in between the rocks. And it was like in the dirt and in the rocks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's not fun because we're going to have to dig all of that. And it looked like there was some concrete. It was all wet. I was like, I don't even know if you can access that pipe. So I did what I always do when I encounter a plumbing situation that looks absurdly difficult.
Especially in the evening.
It looked absurdly difficult. It looked messy.
Yes.
It was in a dark.
Who am I going to call?
Crevice.
Yeah.
With spider webs and wet.
That I didn't mind. I didn't
insulation
mind you calling me on that. That's fun.
That was
that's fun.
I like giving you the hard stuff because I think
fun.
you like a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah. I don't want the easy stuff.
So you came in your typical John fashion, what I thought
complaining.
was complaining.
Yeah.
Me fearful that it's going to be this huge, like multi-day, many $1,000 ordeal. You come in.
I was gone in an hour, I think.
Like an afternoon.
Yeah, it was like an hour and a half. I was all done.
Fix it up and you're like, $800.
Yeah, that's it. Done.
And for me, it's like, well worth it. So that was a good one. That was an easy one.
That was a good one. That was an easy one. Then we had the one where it was your anniversary.
Again.
Your anniversary. And I came, it was at night.
Yeah.
It was cold. It was water pouring out because it was an overhang. The garage.
The carports.
The carport, there was overhang. And all the plumbing is in that overhang. I don't understand how they got away with that design. But the entire, how many units is exposed on that backside?
16 units.
16 units all exposed on that backside.
Yeah, so the way it is, there's like, it's a really cute complex, right? But it's like this long, like mid-century modern 70s wooden structure with carports underneath.
Yep.
And cool windows and angled roofs and stuff. And then they just ran all the plumbing from the mechanical room that's in the center, and they just ran it across, right?
Yep.
And just had lines coming off at each wall division between each unit.
Yep. Yep.
And then underneath it, they just sheetrocked it. And then it was outside.
But
It's out,
by the way,
carports.
yeah, they're sheetrocking outside. First of all, that's I
Right.
don't understand that. I'm a plumber. What do I know?
Right, but the sheetrock's all peeling and the tape's falling.
Yeah, but
because it's outside.
Yes, probably not a good idea. It probably should be plywood. I would think.
Yeah, or
I mean, but
PVC.
what
At
do
this
I
point,
know?
PVC.
What do I know?
Yeah, something.
So water was cascading down out of the carport from above.
Come to find out, this happens every year. They're like, oh yeah, usually it's this unit, and this year it's this unit. And
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
It was, I think, my first year with the property, and just not insulate. Like they didn't even insulate the ceiling.
Yeah.
Or it was.
Yeah.
There was.
There
but
was,
it was
but
minimal.
you could tell that they had removed and taken out and done all kinds of stuff to that thing. Nothing was done correctly there. So I'm thinking we've got a break between that sheetrock and the unit. And we're trying to find it. Can't find anything.
Right.
So we come to find out, we go upstairs.
To the unit.
The unit on the other side, they didn't have their heat on, right?
Yep.
And the airflow must have pushed to the unit that was being occupied by these other people. And we thought we were going to have to open up, remember, like take the cabinets out, open up the back of the wall. And I said, wait a minute, let's check underneath the dishwasher. Because notoriously, there's a mechanical plastic valve underneath the dishwasher that, if it freezes, it's done.
Right.
You're never going to bring it back to life, and you're going to have a mess. Took the thing off,
Sure.
and that's exactly what it was.
Yep.
And they needed to change their dishwasher, which kind of was cool for me because I didn't have to do anything. I just showed up, turned the valve off to the dishwasher.
Problem solved.
Problem was solved.
You know, they got a new dishwasher and it happened like again a week later.
No way.
Yeah. And I don't know what they've done to remedy it since then.
You got to put like insulation. I told them to put insulation back there. If they did or not, that's another story for another day. Probably not.
Well, I think eventually they did because it stopped happening.
Yeah.
But, you know, FYI, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the HOA business, if there is a mechanical failure of inside your unit, regardless of how crappy the developer was and how poorly it was designed and built and how poorly insulated everything is.
Yep.
If it comes from a frozen pipe inside your unit, or even many times what's considered a limited common element to your unit, so only you have access to it, you're on the hook for it.
Yeah.
Or your insurance company is.
Yep. The only time it doesn't apply is when it's in a common area or a mechanical room that is
Even
well,
if it's a common
mechanical room.
Right.
If it's your own, then probably not. But
right. So the verbiage, it depends on the association, but a lot of time the verbiage is any pipe or fixture that serves less than all the units is the responsibility of the units which they serve. And then sometimes they get creative and they say every unit. Really?
sorry, excuse me. It snuck up on me. What do you want from me?
right into the microphone.
I didn't know. I'm going to give you a good one. I will.
Your plumber is showing.
Yeah, buddy.
So that actual association, they have a fancy language. They say everybody has an easement with the rest of the units. So every unit has an easement through the rest of the units, which their pipe feeds, basically. And
they're responsible for that.
well, that just says it's an easement. And say, okay, well, how do we treat an easement? Who's responsible for the payment of an easement? So you've got to actually reference Connecticut general statute, which tells you how you treat easements.
Oh, God.
And then the Connecticut general statute says easements are the responsibility of the person who has the easement through the other. So basically, if you're getting fed water through an easement that goes through other units, if the line breaks, it is the responsibility of everybody who is fed by that line to fix it. So if you're on a continuous line and 3 units down, there's a frozen pipe and a burst, and there's 10 units after that, those 10 units have an easement through the units, which it burst, right? So basically where it burst, everything upline of that has to split the bill.
Wow.
That's how Connecticut goes.
Sounds like I don't want to own a condo. That's what it sounds like. I mean, to be quite honest with you. So
you want to be familiar with the condo docs,
yeah,
and you want to be sure that it's been built soundly. And
unfortunately, there's not too many developers out there who build sound buildings anymore. So,
bro,
what?
This is my business.
Well,
he's like, I'm just telling you the truth.
What do you want me to lie about it?
He's like, I don't think you want to own a condo. We're in the condo. Sorry. We're in the condo management business.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I want a condo. Oh boy.
No. Listen, I get it. But if you're watching this, you probably already are in a condo or in an HOA, and and you're probably running into issues with shoddy workmanship or build quality.
And there's nothing that you can do to change that other than
either sell your condo and move out, or do the best with a bad situation.
Yeah. Which
entails being educated about these things, understanding that, there's trade-offs with condo living. Like, yeah, you don't have to, there's a lot of stuff that gets taken care of by the HOA. There's a lot of
headaches you don't have to worry about.
But there's other headaches you do have to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
And that it is more common than not that when condos are built, they're built to maximize profit. Mm-hmm. The developer's trying to create as many units as possible, sell them for as much as possible, and pay as little as possible to do that, i.e. margins. Mm-hmm. And the less they pay and the more units they build and the more money they get for those units, the bigger their margins.
Yeah.
So they're just trying to build it as cheaply as possible. And the thing with the developer is they have a very short statute of limitations or accountability with respect to these properties that they're building. So,
is there a certain amount of time that they're liable? Is it up to like a year? Because I know for myself, like a lot of times we have like a year warranty where.
Yeah. So I've heard multiple things. I was under the impression that a lot of developers are trying to write it into the docs to make it that like as soon as they transfer ownership, they're off the hook. But an attorney that I trust what he says, and I work with him a lot in Connecticut, he says that it's 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 years.
It's a decent amount of time.
It's a decent amount of time. It's a decent amount of time, but if you think about, your condo should be built to
last longer than 6 years
before you start having issues.
Yeah.
And here's,
but it's such a gray area because there's so many variables that go into how long certain things will last and treatment of certain things. So I don't know.
But generally speaking, you should be able to see in 6 years.
But if you think about it too, I mean, if anybody has owned a condo or does own a condo or will own a condo, you'll know that sometimes simple things like main shutoff valves for your unit, sometimes they don't exist. And you have to shut off a wing or a large, the whole building, especially older 60s and 70s,
80s even.
80s. I know in West Hartford, we were working in one beautiful old craftsmanship, very wealthy condos. But you had to shut the whole stinking place down to, work on a unit.
Yeah.
And everything's buried. There's no accessible pipe where you can say, hey, let's throw a ball valve here for that unit.
Right.
It just doesn't exist. So, and then the old valves that do exist, the maintenance guy has no idea which one to shut off. And most of them don't hold and they leak. And so he just shuts the whole building off every time.
Rather than just put some ball valves
Yeah,
on?
well, and so the point I was making was when the developer comes through, he cuts the bottom line of his contractors. And when me, as the plumbing contractor, not that I would ever do this because it's not right, I go, hey, there's 60 units here. Why don't I just not install valves for 60 units? Why don't I do 4? One for every 12. Now I've saved $23 times 60. And that goes back into my pocket. And if I do that with that, and if I do that with all these other things I can cut corners on, I'm now making my profits greater.
Right.
Which tends to be why you have a lot of those problems where you don't have necessity things that you would need for a specific condo. You wouldn't believe how many times I walk into a condo and there's no main shutoff valve. You know?
Right.
So.
Now, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's a reality. It's a reality that we have to acknowledge that the build quality in a lot of these places is just not where it needs to be. And that's not just for older complexes. I mean,
No,
I
it's
see
actually more so for newer ones, I'd say.
I see some coming off the line right now
Yeah.
that are just, we had one that they had a $2 million settlement with. They had to call in the bond because the developer decided they didn't have enough money to enclose the common stairwells. So they just left them open. Like sheetrock.
I know. I saw it.
Sheetrock.
You showed me.
Yeah. Sheetrock, fire suppression,
Yep.
tile, like the tile
Crazy.
you'd have in your bathroom, carpet on the stairs,
Crazy.
and just no walls. So in Connecticut,
How
where it
would
gets
they
cold.
think that would be okay?
I don't know. So it would rain and the water would come in and the tiles would be super slippery.
Yeah.
And then it would freeze and the fire suppression system would freeze and then it would thaw and
Come on.
yeah, dude.
Wow.
And the developer just left it like that. And they had to fight him for years. And they finally got a $2 million settlement. Paid, to enclose them all. Anyway. So
I see you've dressed in character for Halloween.
I'm black. All right. And then the last big one that we did.
Yes. The last big one.
Yeah.
We had a water problem.
Right. Everything was wet all the time. There's water in the parking lot.
But wasn't there an issue with the bill as well? Weren't you getting high water bills?
Yeah. So everybody was complaining there's water in the parking lot.
And the pressure, wasn't the pressure?
Pressure,
Yes.
yes.
The pressure was wrong. The pressure was low. People were concerned. We walked the parking lot and the pool house is up here, up high.
Yeah.
And then there's grass and a walkway that leads down to
Right.
the parking lot.
Yeah.
And water was coming out of the cracks all along the parking lot. And everything was cracked and disintegrating, right? The asphalt.
The asphalt was, yeah.
And
The water was super wet and mushy.
and then the ground was very,
ground.
very,
Not the
very
water.
saturated.
Grass, yeah.
And we came to the conclusion that it had to be a leak here
In that vicinity.
in that vicinity. But it was the first hole we dug.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do. So backtrack a little bit. This was going on for like 6 months, and we couldn't figure out what was going on until I got the water bill. And then I was
Yeah. Yep. And remember, I even listened on that
pipe.
pipe that came into the building, and I'm like, man, it sounds like rushing water.
Yeah.
It sounds like we've got rushing water here.
Right. And so all we know is that the pipe goes out of the building here and then goes up to the pool house.
Yes.
And in between the wall of the building, there's a hill, there's a sidewalk, there's trees, there's another sidewalk, there's a little bit of grass, there's a flower bed.
Yep.
There's a fence and then a concrete
Slab for the pool.
for the pool.
Yes.
Just concrete everywhere.
I forgot there was a lot of stuff in our way.
And there was just between that wall and the pool house, I would say 70% of it was like, man, if the leak's here, we're screwed.
Yeah.
Dug.
We pointed and we dug and we hit the only leak on that line in the one ditch we dug. That was really impressive.
Yeah.
I have to say, that was
With my
impressive.
little tractor
Yep.
coming in clutch again.
And we cut a section of it out.
No, it wasn't a cut. It was a
rock.
no, it was well pipe, and then remember they only
It
had
just split.
the fittings. They had plastic fittings.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. It was a plastic fitting that broke. It split.
Right. So this complex, again, built in the late 60s, early 70s.
Oh, yeah. They just did whatever they wanted in there.
Yeah, it was
They used the wrong type of pipe. They used the wrong type of fittings. Yeah.
and they
I'm
used
surprised they haven't had more problems
Right.
since.
it was a plastic filling with a single
Yes.
hose clamp on each side,
Yes.
holding it all together.
Which notoriously is a terrible idea. You want to do brass barb fitting with double clamps on each fitting. Yeah, on each side. So,
And that's what you did.
and that's what we did.
We used all the same pipe. We just changed the fitting, put
Yeah.
double clamps,
Yep.
filled in the hole,
And that was it.
and lo and behold, the
No
water
more
dried
problem.
up,
Yeah.
and the water bill dropped back down, and people had water pressure again.
And what was nice was that water line only fed the pool and that one woman's apartment. Is that correct?
No. That line just fed the pool, but it was right off that building. So that whole building had been having low water pressure.
Yeah.
She just experienced it the most because she was on
Yeah.
the top floor.
Yeah.
And then while we were looking at that whole situation, we looked in the building 2 mechanical room, and you're like, what kind of iron? Was it cast iron? It was something.
It was steel.
Black iron.
It was steel black iron. Yes, they used steel black iron for all the fittings,
And all the piping.
and everything was rusting. And for some who may not know, black malleable piping is 150% illegal, contaminates the water supply, and for potable water, drinkable water, you cannot use it. You can use it on a closed system like a heating system, because your backflow preventer will prevent any contamination between your domestic water and your boiler supply. But when it's an actual water main supply coming into a building supplying water to how many people?
Yeah, 7 units.
Not okay by any means.
Yeah, so people are just drinking this.
Yes, if they drink non-purified water, yes, they're drinking right out of the tap and they're drinking nasty stuff.
Black oxidized steel.
Yes, rusting.
That's not healthy. For
No,
you.
not good at all. So we had to,
You saw that. You found that. You're like,
Yep.
this is really bad.
yeah, we got to do something about that. And we did.
And
Once again,
What?
nice and easy and fun.
nice, easy, and fun.
And we
then-
relocated. Also, we relocated where it came up out of the floor, remember?
Yeah.
Because it came up out of the floor and it supplied into the electrical area with all the electrical meters
it's applied right next to it. Yeah.
right into it, yes. And if ever it was designed again in our modern day codes, it would never go into a mechanical room where all the electricity is coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And if it did, it would be way far away.
right. So just to paint the picture for you, you've got a mechanical room with the main power shut off and all the electricity for the whole building,
Yeah.
all the panels and boxes on the wall,
All the meters everywhere. Yep.
meters, panels, boxes, house boxes, master switches, just all this electrical equipment with lots of voltage and amperage feeding in, big fat cables. And then right out of that area, like almost in between the boxes,
Yeah.
is the water main coming in with old well pipe,
And rusted black iron.
rusted black iron, old well pipe. that is
Plastic
no-
fittings.
That is now on city pressure.
Yep.
Right? So it's
Yep.
not designed for city pressure.
Yep.
It's on city pressure. And it's just a disaster waiting to happen because when that goes, all your electrical's there too.
Not good.
So I think we had to do a sump pump.
We did.
We had to trench out the foundation
Yep.
and do a sump pump because they were getting
Yep.
backing up
Yep.
through the ground of the foundation.
Yep.
And when you did that, you're like, while we're here, we should also move
Yeah.
this away from the electrical boxes.
We moved it into the net room next door.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was smart
Yep.
because now it's less of a hazard. We got rid of the black
Yeah.
iron, and so it's just one of those things where having someone you building that relationship, having someone who's good at what they do and that you trust and makes difficult jobs look easy, there's a ton of value in that.
I tend to agree with you.
And I really got to stop hyping you up because now that you're going back out on your own.
Yeah, well, bring on some more hard jobs. Let's make some money, you know? Let's do it.
Fair enough.
Get that tractor back.
I can still rent it from them
Yeah.
if I need to.
That's all. Although we need to get some heavier equipment for the next couple. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, that one. Well, that one we talked about.
That's right. That's not necessary, right?
Yeah.
We're good.
But through all this stuff, I've really thought like we really should consider getting into leak detection and leak repair, underground leak repair, because there's got to be money in that, and we've kind of got a knack for it. We
just point in the ground.
We just point in the ground,
Yeah,
dig,
yeah.
and we find it.
Yeah,
it's like
we
a
get that
sixth
aura. We feel the ground talks to us.
It does.
Yeah,
It's like
maybe
a
the water talks to me.
sixth sense.
Yeah,
The
maybe
water talks to you.
Yeah, waterworks.
Waterworks.
Yeah, we'll call ourselves. I don't know. Triton. What is your
Paladin, Triton.
Triton? I'm Triton.
You're Triton.
You're Paladin.
Paladin. Yeah.
Paladin Waterworks.
Paladin Waterworks.
Yeah.
We should do it.
Let's do it.
We should do it. I think that's our next gig. We'll get into specialized leak detection. Maybe people will watch this and they'll be like, "We want those guys," and we'll fly out to wherever you are.
Oh man, that'd be fantastic. I would love that. Let's fly wherever we need to go.
Yeah, we just got to find a local guy with their state's license.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
It can't be that hard. We got connections. We do have connections, kind of.
So I have quite a few connections, believe it or not. So I have a guy who does all the rent-a-centers all over the country. He does all the fit-outs for Rent-A-Center. They call him up. He shows up. He rips out what's there in the existing space.
Yeah.
And he, to spec, puts up the Rent-A-Center space. So they're whatever they want for their wall decor, sheetrock, plumbing. If they need to move a bathroom, they got to move a bathroom, the whole thing. And he does it all over the country. He's from Georgia.
Okay.
And he's one of my favorite contractors I've ever worked for. He's a lovable Southern guy, big, jolly, fun guy. And me and him just hit it off from the very beginning. And I remember I showed up to do a job and he calls his wife and he goes, "Hey, you got to send Johnny a check." And she goes, "Already?" And he goes, "He's on the special list." And she goes, "He's already on the list?" And he goes, "Yeah, he's on the list." So apparently there's an actual list of like guys he really likes and trusts, and he doesn't care about when he pays them. He just wants to get them paid. And those are the type of guys you want to work for.
Those are the type of guys you want to have.
Yeah. And so I called him up the other day, and he was in Minnesota. And he goes, "We got a job going on up in Maine right now, and we got another one in New York. You have any interest doing the plumbing?" And I said, "Geez," I don't have a license to go up to Maine. I don't have a license. "Oh, you don't worry about that. I'll take care of the licenses. You just show up and do the work, and I'll give you the work."
I love how he's Southern and you're talking with a New York accent.
Yeah. Well, he might as well be in New York. Big mafia guy, that's what makes you feel like.
Yeah.
But great guy. And so, yeah, apparently he could just make it happen.
Nice.
He just make it happen. So he's a good guy to know. I can give Billy a call. He'll take care of us.
So now you know. If you are watching this and you have high water bills and water where there shouldn't be water, and the only
thing we ask is a nice steak dinner, maybe.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah.
I'm always down for that, right?
Yeah.
We haven't done that yet.
Well,
We should do that soon.
Didn't we? I had you over.
Yeah,
What did I feed you? Was it steak?
It was brisket, I believe.
Oh, it was. Oh, I screwed.
And you were complaining, but I thought it was delicious.
No, I ruined that.
You know, it's
It was
like
a bad brisket. I hold my briskets to high standards.
that's going to be the next podcast.
No,
Barbecuing with Triton. What is it? Trident? What is it? Who are you?
Paladin.
Paladin.
Come on my show. Call me the wrong name.
Barbecue with Paladin. Yeah. So
Nice, man.
And if there's any contractors out there that, want to bring down a plumber to Florida or wherever you want me to go, I'll go. Just pay my way. And
So what I'm getting from this conversation is the kind of work we're looking for is just fun and exciting work.
Yeah.
So difficult, challenging, something that it would require a specialized, just problem-solving, critical thinking mind.
Absolutely. I've traveled I've traveled quite a bit actually for work. I've been to South Carolina. I've been to Maine. I've been to West Virginia, the hills of West Virginia. It's fun. Fun. I love traveling for work. That's the way it is. That's the way it should be.
So that's I think got to be our new business
Always
model.
wanted to be like a vacation plumber. Always wanted to show up. You need something done, I'll stay at your house for a week. We'll remodel your bathroom, hang out at the beach.
That sounds phenomenal.
That's what we did in West Virginia, and we did that in South Carolina as well.
Really? There's no beaches
customers we had.
There's no beaches in West Virginia.
No, but it was in the mountains, and it was in the winter. It was actually really cool. Oh. Yeah, it's beautiful. So, yeah, we spent we got there at 5 o'clock at night. We worked all night. We finished in a day and a half, and then we hung out for 2 or 3 days.
That's phenomenal.
That's the way you got to do it.
So you liked, your favorite story was the tractor story.
Tractor story.
I wanted a tractor, so I got
that. Yeah, that's pretty.
Well,
it's pretty awesome.
I mean, there was a few things when I got into this business that I wanted to accomplish. It was I can't afford this, but how can I afford this?
Yeah.
So it was a tractor, it was a Ram truck, and it was to manage the whole top of Country Squire, all the phases.
And you've accomplished every one of those things.
I have.
Yeah.
And did it quicker than I anticipated. So I got to set a new one. So you don't know what the new one is?
No. Am I a part of this? I can be.
It sounds like you're about to be.
Yeah.
So the new one is, how can I afford a plane?
Oh.
Yeah. Not like a.
No, we're not talking a private jet here.
We're not talking like a G7.
Yeah.
I'm talking like a Piper 600 SLS. So
All right.
Still a 6-seater, $3 million plane, but turboprop, something that I could fly.
Yeah.
And I think that this has potential. I'm not going to say this is the golden goose, but it has potential. Fly around the country and solve people's problems, solve people's plumbing problems.
I feel like you probably would need to make more money if you had a $3 million plane and you drove just to solve people's problems. You probably have to charge a lot for that. Don't you think?
I think we're good enough to do it.
Okay.
I mean, granted, we've been successful in everything
good enough
we've tried.
in relativity to the next guy that lives locally, and has the same type of training that we have. I'm sure he could probably figure it out.
You're not buying into my vision.
I think it's a wonderful vision. I just think it's a little impractical. I think if you owned one of those planes, you're better off using it as a pilot and being paid as a private pilot, and you probably make way more money.
I think there's probably more money in the water business, man.
Okay.
In the waterworks business.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. I mean, we can do both.
Okay. Well, why don't we just utilize it at the same time?
Let's just get the plane and go from there, right?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
So, all right. So there's this channel on YouTube that I watch, and it is they do equipment recovery,
Okay.
and it's like
repossession?
no, like someone got their equipment stuck, or it's like an excavator that's been stuck on this mountainside, flipped over for 20 years, right?
Oh, all right.
And I mean, but like we're talking the most badass forms
Yeah.
of equipment recovery, where this dude like will fly a helicopter out, like a freight helicopter.
Wow.
And like get some cranes out there to get this piece of equipment that's precariously teetering on like the edge of a cliff, right?
Wow.
And I'm sure, I mean, the kind of equipment that he has to do that kind of stuff, he must be able to charge a lot. Or, I mean, let's say they say just if you get the equipment, you can have it. Those are like $500, $1,000 machines, whatever.
Right.
So, you know, how big of water problems can we solve? I mean, water can be an expensive problem,
As we found out.
as we now know.
We could be like the gurus. They call us up. We make problems disappear kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Your water problems.
Yeah. And then it just kind of snowballs into anything. You know, any type of problems will make them disappear.
Well, we might have to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah.
This is going to be,
probably.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
But yeah, property management, condo problems, water problems. We can help you with those. We just,
Just don't call me. Call Jared, and then he can call me.
yeah, but I'll have to call like 3-4 times because
Yeah.
he'll screen the call like the first
Definitely.
time. It's like,
Definitely. And you can't leave a voicemail. So
but he knows if I call him twice in a row or 3 times in a row,
that it's a problem.
and he's going to pick up.
Yeah, I will pick up. Only for Jared, though.
Yeah, it's because we do good work.
Yeah, we do.
We solve problems.
Appreciate the work, always.
Make sure you get paid on time.
Yeah, it's always a good thing.
It's always important.
Yeah, it's the most important thing.
Now that you're back on your own,
Yeah,
it is.
that's right.
Prior to that, it was like,
Yeah.
if you pay my boss,
Yeah.
it's good. He pays me regardless.
Yeah, exactly. I
Now
get paid
it's-
every Wednesday night, actually. I get paid. So
Yeah, now it's like
only got a month left.
a month left. Well,
Or so I think.
Yeah.
I might be overreacting, but,
you served your role for him.
my purpose.
You served your purpose for him. And
Being put out to pasture now.
but you know what? You had a good run at it. And
Honestly, I'm happy about it.
yeah.
I'm okay with it.
And I think you should be.
Yeah.
And I think you're at a point where now you get to get passionate about what you do again.
Yeah.
You get to take on some cool stuff. And there's a new chapter. I mean, who knows who's going to see this and what kind of cool stuff's going to come from this.
Yeah, and I mean, next thing you know, I'll be doing YouTube videos on how to fix stuff.
Yeah. Just imagine that, just like getting flown out somewhere to handle a big water issue.
Well, I had talked to you about this. I got some great ideas. I want to do a call-in service, video stream, where I literally will walk you through your problem. I can walk you through simple repairs. I can set up a nice little shop where we have everything set up on display, and we can, we can make things happen.
I think that's a great
I
idea.
think people would pay for that.
Yeah.
Why have me come out for $200 an hour when I can charge you by the minute on your credit card,
And you
5-10 minutes, and we're done.
fix it yourself.
And then it's not my problem. All the clauses at the bottom that you sign up, you have to sign up for. I think it's a pretty good idea, though.
It's not a bad idea.
No, I think people would pay for that.
Yeah. I still like the getting flown out to do leak
Flow.
resolution.
I mean, if you want to fly me out to fix a leak, I'm there.
Like
I would
cool
love that.
stuff. Like,
Yeah, no,
like
cool stuff.
underground stuff that
Yep.
you got to get equipment for.
Yeah. I
Guys
mean, you could be talking, all kinds of issues that you could be dealing with there.
Yeah. Figuring out where it is, triaging it.
Yeah,
I think that's cool.
it's right there.
It's your superpower.
Done.
Well, sir.
Well, this has been fun.
Yeah.
Appreciate you having me.
Is this what you expected?
No.
No. What did you?
No, I expected like a table that I'd be able to put my hands on, not just like just sit here like this. I didn't think that it was gonna be story time. Like this feels like story time.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it like that, very intimate.
Yeah.
I think is the word.
Yeah. It was just
Classy.
This is the kind of stuff we do. We're just sharing. Here's what I think I found is when I first started to make these videos, I wanted to try to sell like what we're doing and stuff. And what I've realized is
People don't want that.
we've done some cool stuff.
Yeah, just talk about it.
Just talk about it and reminisce. And I think the most important piece of this whole thing in what I've come to realize is the relationships that we build with the people in our business, our line of work, are more important, are the most important component.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and because when I really run into a bad situation,
You got someone you can call.
I know that after the third time in a row calling you, you will in fact pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And that
I'm out of the state. I just saw you drive by me. I see your van, John. I'm in Vermont. I'm losing you. Yeah, no, that's what it really is, a nice thing to be able to have someone you can call. And I'm always impressed with the relationships over the years I've been able to develop with electricians and carpenters and people you can call in an emergency and they're more than willing to help you out. So That's always a nice thing.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me.
I thank you for taking the time and doing this with me.
And the 3 or 4 people that will watch this, I hope that you enjoy. You know,
they will. They'll get a kick out of it. It's probably going to be my
your mom, your wife,
the girl who's doing the editing.
Yes, your receptionist here. She's just going to be like, "Oh my goodness, I can't watch this." Just embarrassed, but
no.
Yeah, whatever works.
This will be fun. It's entertaining. I think story time's fun because.
How many of these have you done?
So this will be it's going to be our 9th episode.
Wow, really?
But I'm recording them out of order. So it's like the 3rd or 4th one we've recorded.
Oh, okay.
But just because of scheduling, I have the first 25 episodes I want to do.
Wow.
But obviously to do it all in chronological order doesn't make a ton of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just, doing it when people are available, and then we'll release them in chronological order. But you actually might get jumped. You might jump from 9th up sooner, because what I realized having this conversation was that,
I was kind of the beginning.
You were there at the beginning.
Yeah.
You were
infancy.
Yeah. You were part of our early foundational success, which was the foundation for all the rest of the cool stuff we've done was built on.
Yeah.
And we keep doing cool stuff.
There it is.
And we're going to keep doing cool stuff.
And I'm still going to be here.
Why don't you just come be a paladin?
Money's got to be right. I'm an expensive date,
Well, you have high earning potential.
I'm an earner. If I'm utilized correctly.
Right.
If I'm utilized correctly, I'm an earner. Otherwise, I get comfortable and lazy.
Right. You're like, I want to work.
Yeah.
6 months later, you're like, chair.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be working
this hard. This is not for me. Give someone else a call, So, see what happens.
We'll just try to focus on cool stuff that conveys a lot of value, and that we're able to charge good,
maybe
good,
like a dog walking, something like that. I'd be a good dog walker, I think. Yeah,
you would like that.
No, I wouldn't actually. I don't like dogs very much. They're just
you just lost 10,000
well,
potential clients
they're
right
just
there.
They're just annoying. Dogs are annoying. They're nice and everything, but
see, I like dogs.
I do too. Don't get me wrong, but they're just and then they then you got to pay all this money to get them when they're sick. And
do you guys have a dog?
No.
Is your wife trying to get you to get a dog?
Children. I don't have a cat. I don't have anything.
No responsibilities.
None. No.
You got a wife.
That just shut off again.
Huh. Well, I think it's trying to get.
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, dude.
All right, I'm out.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Oh.